Right, let us get into this then. So I'm going to share my screen, and Mark, I think you're going to talk us through the agenda for today.
Yes, so episode 10, lads, can you believe that? So today, I'm just going to put it out there, it's the least prepared we've ever been for a webinar, so expect the odd mistake. We are going through demos. So whether you do sales demos through maybe software or you do presentations, and you're looking to improve the quality and outcome of those presentations or demos, this is the webinar for you. We're going to take you through, first of all, how you can properly prepare for your presentations or demos. So what are a few little tips and tricks that you can do to make sure that you are properly prepared? We're then going to talk about some of the classic mistakes. I know Rich will agree with me that we used to deliver, I'm going back sort of 10 years, but some truly horrendous demos.
10 years? You're still doing them now, mate.
Ooh, if there was an exclusive. But no, like Rich, what do we used to do, man? Like we used to get a presentation sent over to us 10 minutes before. We used to just load it up. First thing we'd do is show off shiny logos. We'd ask 3 questions, one of them 10 times, which was, does that all make sense? One was about the weather, and the last one was like, oh, what do you want to do next? It was just a presentation, and that was it. So we're going to share with you some of the biggest mistakes that you can make on your demo, some of the pitfalls, and share with you how to avoid them. We're then going to be talking about tips and tricks. So actionable tips and tricks that you can take away and start using in your very next demo. And we're going to back them up. We're not just going to tell you what we think. We're going to show you them in action, real recordings from our demos, putting it into practice. We've then got our frequently asked questions. So questions that me and Rich get asked a lot from people about how to deliver their better demos. And then stick around. I don't know if anyone was here last week who took advantage of the My Sales Coach intro, but we have got a very special My Sales Coach offer that I cannot wait to share with all of you. And it's only for those on the webinar. Rich, should we kick this off? We're 4 minutes in.
Yep.
We are going into preparation first of all. So why don't you tell us first of all how you prepare for your demos?
Yeah, I think this is really key, and ever since that I started thinking more about preparation, my demos became so much more effective and I had much more success. When I think back previously to what I used to do, you could barely call it preparation. I would be like, oh, I've got a call with somebody. They've put an hour aside at 10 o'clock on Tuesday. I may do a little bit of like research on their company, and I go straight into my demo, which was one of the dullest back-to-back PowerPoint presentations you can ever imagine. It was a one-way street of dialogue. And one of the things that we've talked about over the past few weeks is the importance of discovery. Like, if you don't do good discovery, you're not going to do a good demo. And I've made a big point about that. Discovery should really be treated as a completely separate conversation to your sales demo, because unless you've actually had that great discovery conversation, the demo that you end up doing is just going to not be relevant. You're not going to come across as prepared. You're going to be tempted to do the same demo or presentation that you do to every single prospect, no matter who you speak with. So key, first of all, is listening back to your discovery call. And yes, that means recording the discovery conversation. So this is what I would do. Sorry, go on, Mark.
Before then, who here records the discovery calls? Just pop into the chat. If you record your calls, just put yes. If you don't, I want to know, but I want to know why you don't record them. Carry on, Rich. Like, while people are just feeling this.
So this is really key. And hi, Maria from Boomtown. Good to have you with us. So this is why it's so key. And I'm sitting here. I make very detailed notes on it though, and I'm going to challenge the note taker, right? Because I thought I took detailed notes, and this is what my notes sort of look like. I'll show you an example here, right? This is what my notes look like. I don't know if people can see that. It literally is nonsense. It is arrows, it's shapes, it's little words, it's meaningless. And you know what the notes don't give me, even if they're detailed? What they don't give me is the actual context of the conversation. It doesn't give me the sound of the prospect when they were moaning about their biggest problem in the world. I lose so much by not having the ability to listen back to what that conversation sounded like. My notes a week later potentially run the risk of giving me a very misdirected sense of what we were actually talking about. So this is what I do. I actually use Refract to help me listen back to my conversation ahead of my demo. And one of the things that I do here is I make this really easy by what I want to do before I actually go into the demo situation. I want to remind myself what were the specific key pain points and challenges that were discussed on that last call, because they're the things I want to really focus on in my demo. So what I do, and this is a good example, is I have a way in Refract of being able to search for specific pain points that were mentioned in my last discovery conversation with this prospect. And what it's doing is it's basically finding all of the key points in my conversation of specific things that the prospect was talking about. So I can see here the prospect was talking about difficulties of ramp time, of not having the time to go through calls, of manual processes. And these are all the things that I want to make sure I hone in on in my demo. So in this case, I might want to remind myself, what was the prospect saying when they were talking about that they don't have the time? I'll listen back to that point in the call.
I don't have the time to go through it.
And this is just a way for me to remember what were let's imagine we talked about 5 key things, but maybe this was the specific point that really wound the prospect up most of all. And this is the thing that I want to bring to my demo. And so it's so crucial. I think you've described this, Mark, that you feel vulnerable now without actually recording your discovery calls.
Yeah, because the reality is, before my calls were recorded, I would be trying to make notes, trying to think of questions that I need to ask, trying to listen to the prospect, and it just got too much. And I'm sure, who here resonates with the following? A week later, you're looking at your notes and you're thinking, what on earth does that mean? I can't quite remember. I'm a little bit lost. And reality is, you just felt like you were vulnerable, whereas you had the recording, it just helped protect me and my knowledge, because I could just revisit it and replay exactly what we spoke about, what I said. I had times where we agreed a time and a date to speak next, put the phone down, completely forgot what we said because my memory was that bad, and I just nip back in, listen, and it's all taken care of.
Here's the key point. When you listen to the conversation, you remember the words that the prospect used, and you can use those words back at the prospect. And it takes it away from you misinterpreting the prospect to using the specific words that they used. And that can just make the selling experience so much more real for the prospect in hand. So that's the first thing, is listening back to the discovery call.
Just quickly, Rich, a couple of people are asking about legalities of recording calls. Like, there's so much misconception there. When someone says to you, oh, how do you notify? What do you have to do? There's a really easy answer, isn't there?
Yeah, so first of all, it depends where you're located as far as the like whether you need to let someone know that the call's been recorded. It varies geographically. But if you want to provide notification, this is what it sounds like at the start of my discovery call. Oh, hey, Mark, really looking forward to speaking with you today. Just a quick question. Are you okay if I record this conversation just to save me from taking down meeting notes and giving you my full attention today?
Mm-hmm. It's that easy. But like you say,
which prospect would want to say no to that?
Yeah, exactly. But the important thing here, though, Rich, is vast majorities, like the UK, most states in America, you don't need to announce it. If you know you're recording the call for legitimate purposes, you can. Vast majority of B2B calls are recorded. So just check where you're based. There's a couple of states in America that you need to notify. And if you do, you just do what Richard said. It's really easy.
Yep. So step 2, create your what I heard from you slide. It's safe to say that, and I have to give a big nod here to Peter Cohan, who, if you don't know him, is a trainer specifically for software sales demos. When I learned this technique from Peter, I think it's fair to say, Mark, transformed the way that we did demos at Refract. Yeah. And basically what it is, it takes what I've learned in my discovery call, and it actually, ahead of the demo, I will create my what I heard from you slide. And it looks a little bit like this. Now I'll just go into presentation mode so you can actually see this. It is essentially a slide that summarizes the key points that were identified in that discovery conversation. It's almost like taking my 30-minute discovery and whittled down into a number of key bullet points where I'm just reminding the prospect about what we covered in that initial call.
A great analogy here, right, Rich, is this is like before you go into surgery, which the demo or presentation is, a doctor just showing you the x-ray. This is what we've spoken about. This is where the break is, the tear, the whatever. We are now going to fix this, but before we do, I just want to show you this. And when you take someone through everything that they've spoken about before, the reactions are, wow, you've really been listening. That's exactly what I spoke about. It really reminds them of what they've told you, and you get them to confirm, is all this fair? Have I heard you correctly? They'll say yes. At no point in the demo can they then change their mind. Oh, this isn't relevant for us anymore, because they have confirmed that they've got these problems.
Question for the audience. How do you think your prospects feel if you started your demo saying, I just want to make sure I've got this correctly, and you went through each of these points, and at the end of it saying, did I understand that correctly? How do you think your prospects will feel? I want to hear some comments in the chat. What do you think is going in their prospects' mind when you say that? Maria, they feel so much more understood. They would feel heard. How many times are salespeople criticized for not listening? And Raymond, creates credibility. This is bang on the money. We talk about building rapport in sales. Rapport is not about small talk and making someone laugh. It's about building trust. And if you can say to someone, we talked about these points, did I get this down correctly? And even, you see the little things I put in blue here. These are the areas that I want to ask further questions on. I'm asking questions where I want to understand more. This is a great selling experience. It's a great buying experience for the prospect. And this becomes almost your menu for what you demo against. Mm-hmm. And this is the second slide. So bear in mind, this is just 2 slides. Sometimes I'll try and fit this on 1 slide, is how can we help? And I'll put down 4 or 5 points of the specific things that I believe we can help based on what was identified on that slide. Here's the pain points. Here's the problems. Here's how I think we can help. And this just becomes my content page of the specific things in Refract that I'm going to demonstrate. So we say, okay, Mr. Prospect, we identified that we might be able to help you improve the quality of conversations your team are having. Let me jump into Refract and show you specifically how we can help with point number 1. Once I do that, I go back to the situation slide. Okay, the second point is you want to bridge the gap between your top and bottom performers. Let me show you how we can do that in our product. And you basically just treat this as like a checklist. And you go off point number 1, point number 2, point number 3. And at the end of your demo, you say, okay, do you feel I've demonstrated how we can help address all those points? Yes.
So Rich, I can't imagine anyone's listening to this thinking, nah, that's nonsense. Like, it just makes so much sense. But I tell you what, some people be thinking, don't have time to do this. Listen back to my calls before, make situation slides. I haven't got time. I personally think that's a load of rubbish. You've got to make time. But I'm keen to hear, conscious of our time as well, Rich, nearly quarter past. But what would you say to people that go, I haven't got time for this?
If you haven't got time for this, you're doing what most salespeople do, and you're cutting corners and you're damaging the chance of you getting success. I'm telling you, make time for this. This is preparation. You should be doing this, and it's being thorough. And if you're not doing this, you're winging it. And it depends. Do you want to have better conversations with your prospects? Simple as that. I'm going to just come down to the last thing of preparation, setting up your demo environment. This is probably more relevant for those who are demoing software, but one thing I always recommend is make sure that, like I've got on screen here, is ahead of the demo starting, make sure you've got all of the tabs open. There's nothing worse than in a demo, the lag time between clicking on specific parts of your navigation bar, loading up new pages. It just really kills the fluidity of that demonstration. I always make sure I've got the specific screens that I want to demonstrate already preloaded. And it just makes it easy to transition between each one and just keeps that conversation really fluid. So that's just a best practice. And one of the things that you can do, and Mark, I'll give you credit, you taught me this trick, is you can actually pre-save your screens in a little bookmark folder, as you can see here. And if I just hit that open all 6, it will actually open all the tabs in that folder. So it's a good time hack for in that regard as well.
Time hacks, there we go. Awesome. So that's how you properly prepare for demos. The next bit we're moving on to, Rich, tell me if I'm wrong, but it's mistakes, the common pitfalls.
Yeah, we love this screen, pitfalls and mistakes. And what we're going to do here is we're going to talk through and also start playing through some real examples of mistakes and how to avoid these in demos. And we've kind of whittled down into 5 specific key points here on common mistakes that we see in presentations and demos. And we'll start with number 1, wasting discovery. Mark, what do we mean by this?
Well, I mean, I think we've just covered this, right? How many people will have a discovery call, then they'll stop their demo where they just go straight into presentation mode? You have just shown us, Rich, how to not waste that discovery, replay it, revisit it. It's almost like when you start your next episode on Netflix or whatever, it's like previously, and it gives you just that little summary of everything that's just happened. I don't know about you, particularly when I'm watching week to week stuff. That's really bloody helpful. Do you know what I mean? I remember like when I was watching like Broadchurch, I needed that previously to remember all the little nuggets. Yeah, the recap. So when you've had a great discovery, and discovery should be the most critical part of your sales process, don't then just put it in the bin as like a ticked box. Use it. So use it in the situation slides and use it throughout the demo to realign what you're showing them to what you've discovered. That then takes on to the Harbour Tour. So Harbour Tour, Rich, this is where I might say to you, get on my boat. I'm going to take you up and down the tour. We're going to see every landmark, etc. Tell us why people don't want a harbour tour.
Yeah, I mean, this is like the harbour tour is literally when you get on that tourist attraction boat. We have one in York here where we've got the river, and you see that the boat's packed, and they basically say, here's the monument, here's the museum, here's the church, and no matter who you are, no matter what time of the day is, no matter what day of the week, you're getting that same tour. And this is the problem with a lot of demos and presentations, is that you convert them into a harbour tour. It's like no matter who you speak with, no matter what their challenges are, no matter what their potential areas of interest, you end up showing off every single feature to the same prospects again and again and again. And what happens is you end up spending like 10 minutes showing off a feature, like a tourist attraction that you think is interesting as a salesperson. Yet the reality is your prospect thinks it's dull, it's boring, doesn't help them, it's not relevant. And when we think of like I read an article the other day, Mark, it was like the average attention span of a human is like 9 seconds. We're kind of like getting the realms of being fishes as humans.
I was, this is a very quick story. I was doing a coaching session for someone just a couple of days ago. They told me their demos last 90 minutes, right? And I said to them, so I'm a big football fan, go to the games as and when I can. And I give the example, right? I don't know if this has happened to anyone else. I can leave a stadium, listen to it on the radio and be like, don't remember that happening. Like, I don't remember that part of the play. I don't remember how the goal was set up. And I just think, well, if I can't pay attention to something I care about and that I've paid to go to, how are we expecting prospects to really tune in for these long demos? It just doesn't add up. Makes sense.
On that note, please put in the chat, everyone, roughly in minutes, how long is your demos? What does a normal demo look like? I'm really intrigued to see the length of them. 5 minutes, 40 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes, an hour, 60, an hour and a half. You know what, right? Here's the thing. I want to encourage everybody to be on the receiving end of a demo, right? Even if you just sign up for a demo to a company that you're interested in, and just see what it feels like to be demoed at for more than 20 minutes. I guarantee you start as a human, you will start to like basically drain away. And this is the thing. It's like, think about, always put yourself in the buyer seat. How long does even 30 minutes feel like just being taken through a demo? And I think it'll give you a lot of context as to, okay, maybe we need to reduce this. And I kind of put this in my post today, is that one of the golden rules of demos is try and demo as little as possible.
Got Darren Hall here. He's saying that his demos used to last an hour, but 40 minutes average now with Refract, which is obviously great to hear. Keith here is talking about how you convince the owner that a 50-minute 80 slide deck is not a good idea. Get him to deliver it, Keith, or get him to sit and listen to it. Or
put together 80 slides of a topic that interests you, and get him to sit there and do the demo and see if he finds it entertaining. I guarantee he won't.
And one of the reasons that demos last too long is we slip into this mistake of training versus demonstrating. And this is something that really grinds my gears. Rich, I have sent you for the next one, I've sent you my LinkedIn post rather than back to you. One of the things that really frustrates me when I see demos, and I want people to be honest, who here on their demo starts on the homepage or shows people how to do something, how to log in, how to add a user, how to build a report. Who here is guilty of doing that? Because what you're doing is you're giving a training session, and that's not what a demo is. A demo is showing you what is possible, what can be achieved. So that's that mistake there. Would you add anything onto that, Rich, before we move on to the Jurassic Park?
I think this is a real problem. Training someone on your product should come after they've bought, not beforehand. And I think ultimately, when we say demonstrating is just demonstrating the outcome. And I think, like I say on here, for example, one of the screens I have loaded up is this insights report, because maybe someone wants to look at how you can benchmark individuals against each other and look at their call insights. Now, the training aspect would be like, let me show you how you build this report. First of all, you do your search term, and then you go on your compare menu, and then you choose your sales reps. They don't care about it. And I think the other thing to remember here is that oftentimes the people that you present or demo to are not the people who are going to be using your product. They're the people who will make a judgment on it, decide if it's going to be a valuable addition, but training that person how to do certain things is going to be irrelevant because they will never actually use the product. They may be responsible for buying it. So just remember, don't get in training mode. Don't show people how you do something. Show the kind of the finished article. And that does bring us nicely into the bit that I know that you're really excited for, Mark, which is end-to-end demos versus Jurassic Park. Say what?
First of all, you cannot say Jurassic Park unless you say it like Alan Partridge. So I'll let you do that again. One of the frustrations that I've had previously is when I've coached demos and they start on the homepage. And I'm just going to share like a story. I was talking to a rep and I said, why did you start on the homepage for their demo? And they said, that's where I always start. That's the homepage. And I just said, do you know what starts at the homepage? Tours. That's where you meet your tour guide at the home and they take you on the tour that's been perfectly laid out for you. It's a train track tour. This analogy is cheese on toast, but I really like it. I am conscious that I'm getting to the stage where I'm a little bit older than some people that are in the workplace. And I ask people, who here on the webinar has seen Jurassic Park? Just put yes. And by Jurassic
Park 1.
Yeah, by Jurassic Park, I don't mean Chris Pratt's version. I mean the original, because I was talking about it the other day, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that Chris Pratt's dead good," and I'm like, "No, I mean 1993." So the reason I'm talking about Jurassic Park is because, as I say, it's cheese on toast. But I wrote a post about this the other day. Rich, if you just open up this post, and if you connect me on LinkedIn, some of the examples, some of the laughs you'll have following me, I put that. You should start your demos the same way John Hammond starts Jurassic Park. He takes Ellie and Grant, and hang on, Rich, getting ahead of ourselves here. He takes Ellie and Grant to what they care about most first. He doesn't take them to the laboratory where they see the raptor being born, and he doesn't take them to the theatre where they see the video presentation. He doesn't even put them in the cars where they go around the park. The first thing he does is takes them to what they care about, and their reactions are like iconic in the world of cinema. And observe how little John says as well as the sales rep. Play this for us, Rich.
Alan, this species of variform has been extinct since the Cretaceous period. I mean, this thing isn't on this thing.
It's a dinosaur. Here I come. Yeah, it's a big giraffe, that, isn't it? So, Oliver there. So my point being, I know it's a little bit cheesy, but just try and think. That's how your demo should start. You should start with the wow moment, the thing they care about most. Too many demos start with things that nobody cares about: the homepage, logging in, how to create users, or even just the train track elements. And they don't get to that wow moment till the end. And by then, they've probably lost interest. You may have even run out of time. Start with wow.
I'm telling you, my demos, I used to start the check-in desk. I used to, it was like, go to the museum first, look at every artifact, and that was how I did it until you actually realize that why not start with the best thing first? You've got no better chance to impress upon your prospect of saying, okay, you mentioned that this is the biggest problem that you've got in the world. Let me show you the output. Let me show you straight off the gate that we're the one for you. And I think that's a great analogy to use.
Nathan here is saying he's had a discussion with his team, and several of them argue that they'd like to end on a high note. Well, you can end on a high note. You can end on the we're gonna work together. If you do the demo right, you might not get that end. Like, how many times do people run out of time or get bored, or they've got to move on? You can't take that risk.
Here's a great question, Nathan. Let's imagine you are in the market to buy a brand new widescreen HD quality TV, right? And imagine that you went into the shop and the shop assistant said, okay, so you like the look of this TV? Okay, so here's the remote control and here's the buttons, and let me show you the different options that you've got in the instruction manual. And this is where you do you're sat there thinking, just show me the picture quality. I want to see what it looks like. So just think of it that way. Like, imagine that you're buying the TV. You don't want to wait to be impressed. You want to see straight away. You want the wow moment. Think of your demos as being the wow moment.
So let's move on, but start your demos like Jurassic Park. Ask yourself before every demo, if I can only show them one thing for definite and a backup bonus, what are those two things going to be? And there's where you start your demo. That's where you start your demo. Let's move on here. Rich, you invented the term just yesterday, discovery pit stops.
No, I didn't. Not yesterday.
Well, that was the first time I heard it.
I did. No, it's so. The point here is that one of the biggest pitfalls of demos is that they become a one-way street of dialogue. People hear the word demo presentation and they think it's now their God-given right to own the stage and to basically talk at the prospect. Like, oh, we've done all the talk and I've asked you my questions. Now it's my time to shine, and you're going to sit there and you're going to listen. You're going to watch my demo. And no, that's not the way you do it, because again, prospects don't want to be pitched at. They don't want to sit there and basically have to be presented all over for 20 to 30, 45 an hour. So one of the ways that I encourage to make your demos a presentation is to basically have what I call discovery pit stops. It's taking the kind of Formula One analogy where every lap or every other lap you're kind of coming into the pit stop where you're getting some work done in your car. And just to kind of bring this to life a little bit around the importance of demos being conversations, this is what they should look like. So this is one of the things.
One of mine, is it, Rich?
It is. It was hard to find one of these that had the right metrics.
Stop it.
This is actually one of Mark's demos, and one of the things that we measure in Refract is the number of questions that the sales rep is asking throughout the conversation, regardless of what type of conversation that is. And you'll see here that a lot of people would assume that for a demo presentation that you ask all of your questions at the start and then you ask some of the questions at the end. Well, actually, no. You'll see here that Mark actually asks a good bulk of questions consistently throughout this conversation. This is a conversation. It's not a one-way street of dialogue. It's not questions at the start, questions at the end. It really demonstrates the importance of interactivity. And another thing that we measure is actually when customers ask us questions. And you know that you're doing a good demonstration when the number of questions that your customer or prospect is asking you increases as the demo or presentation progresses. Why? Because they're not sat there in silence. They're sat asking questions. They're engaged. It's a level of interest. But it also shows that you're asking them questions, which is fueling their ability to ask questions too. And when I say ask questions, it really has to be effective questions. And one of the big problems that salespeople have is they ask questions that sound a bit like, does that make sense? Here's a screen, here's a slide. Does that make sense? And guess what answer you get to the question, does that make sense?
Yep.
Yes. Even if it doesn't make sense to the prospect, they'll say yes, because it's an easy question to ask. It's an easy question to answer. It doesn't help you. And it's so one of the things I want to encourage people to do is if you're going to ask questions, ask great questions. Don't ask rubbish questions like, does that make sense? And I'm going to switch to Mark now, who's going to show you some great examples of alternative questions to the question, does that make sense?
Makes sense to me. Pass it over, Rich. So I should be able to share my screen now.
I'm going to make you host. Give me a second. If you're guilty of asking the question, does that make sense, too many times in your demos and presentations, and this is a place where you're welcome to share your sins in a safe environment, please put sense in the chat. I know that I used to be terrible at this.
So I'm going to find some examples. The first thing I'm doing is looking for, well, I'll spell it wrong, so that's not going to help, is it? So I'm going to look for examples. One of my favorite questions is, how does that compare? What you want to do is you want to keep discovering throughout the demo, right? Discovery never stops. So what I like to do is when I show them something, I like to say, how's that compared to what you're currently doing? Here's an example of that in a recent demo that I was doing. So just let that play. I'll take my headphones up. Processes. How does that sort of compare to what you were imagining you were going to see here?
That's better than I thought. I thought I'd be able to just type in only free trial.
So he then goes on to tell me what he was expecting to see, how this compares. Let me share.
What do you think would have happened? What do you think would have happened if you'd said, "Does that make sense?" He would have said, "Yep, that makes sense," and you wouldn't have learned any of that other stuff, that useful stuff that helps you actually figure out why it's different, why this is a better way of doing it compared to how he does it today.
Here's another example of that. How does that compare to what's happening right now? You know, I know you're reviewing the recordings and giving feedback, but how does this compare to what you're currently doing?
Oh, I suppose in a lot of ways it's worlds apart.
In a lot of ways it's worlds apart. They then go to explain how that's so different. Let me share with you another question. So we'll look for what kind of impact. So this is when you've just shown something, but you want to know what kind of impact is that going to have for you. Let me go to the top. Let's pick this one here. So again, this is one of my demos. I'm asking here, what kind of impact? What kind of impact do you think that could have on reducing RAM time?
I think it'd be massive, right? I think even just if you've got that, and
it's going to have a massive impact on RAM time. Again, could easily say, does that make sense? Is that okay?
Any questions?
Any questions? Let's see if we pick another one here. Let's go with this one. So 5 minutes in, here we go. Those moments. What kind of impact do you think that could have on them and their learning journey?
Yeah, so at the moment we have a database of calls. So they're split into...
Get loads of information back from just asking, what kind of impact has what I've just shown you going to have for you? And that's where you can start to find out, well, what kind of impact is it going to have for you as an individual that's got targets to hit, but what about you personally as well? Rich,
I think we've got some questions. So whilst you're kind of finding next example, we've got some decent questions on Matt. What questions have we got? That
so there were two that came in that were really, really pertinent. Quite a few people shared those. Nathan said, how long would you typically spend on what we've heard on a previous call? So just while Mark's looking for examples, we circle back to the open.
Yeah.
How long would you spend on that recap element?
Yeah, well, I mean, time management is key, of course. Like if you've got a demo put aside for an hour put aside for a demo, you want to make sure that you're using your time wisely. But I personally think that recap is in some ways more crucial than the actual demo itself. As crazy as that sounds, but because the demo is just a validation, a verification that you can help that prospect, and the key is actually, do you understand the specific pains and problems and challenges of that prospect? So I'd be quite happy if I had an hour scheduled for that demo. I'd be quite happy 20 minutes, 25 minutes, still be talking about that initial conversation, recapping, understanding more, continuing discovery into the demo. Really, when it comes to demoing, I want us to be spending no more than 15 minutes actually presenting my product. And I know some people are thinking, 15 minutes, but there's so much to show. It's like, we need to understand that it's difficult to keep people's attention for longer than that period of time. And again, remember that most of what you probably show in an hour and a half demo, probably about 70% of that is probably going to be not that interesting or relevant for the prospect. Find the 3 or 4 things that are going to be really relevant and focus on those areas. So yeah, that I've got no shame in saying that sometimes my recap of the last conversation is as long as the actual demonstration itself.
And what I'm sharing right now, some of these questions, these are great ways if you do need a little bit more time to extend that, because what you're doing is you're asking questions that gets people to engage with you. Like they're actually going to give you responses, detailed responses, which opens up more doors to more conversations. I think one of the other ways in which you can really help with that engagement, though, is to get them to imagine using your product, get them to imagine using it in their world. Because it's all too well and good showing someone something, but they need to picture it. They need to know how they would use it. Rich, one of your favourite words is imagine in sales demos. If I was to pick like this call here, like you with Rob as an example, you can play here that you're saying imagine. Let me just play it for you.
I imagine it would be ideal for, ideal for.
Oh, that's him saying imagine. If we were to take another one here then, Rich, as an example of where you're planning to sit.
Imagine. So,
So let me tell you that the context of actually using this word is I will say to prospects, imagine if you could do this, or imagine if you were able to achieve that.
I've got it. This is the one I was looking for. You must have 2 Rich and Robs. I found this the other day. Here it is. Like there's 4 examples of you saying this. So here we go. Here's the first one.
Let's imagine. So I make quite a lot of calls off my mobile, hence why that's my mobile number.
So a little bit there. Let's imagine about using a phone. 10 minutes later.
So let's imagine that you've actually found a call that you wanted to take a deeper dive in. In fact,
a little bit later.
Let's imagine you're listening to this call back, and let's imagine at this point in the call, 4 minutes in, you hear something. But let's imagine that Mark did something
amazing, no doubt. So Rich, I'll plug back in.
Yeah, the key is I want to get the prospect visualizing using my product. And when you use the word imagine, what happens when you use that word is prospects, without them really thinking about it, start to visualize and start to think about using the product in their world. And it's such a powerful word to use, hence why I use it quite often, is because I want the prospect to keep on thinking as if they're using my product and they're kind of in that happier place. And it's just a great way to just get prospects to really start to visualize how they could apply what you're sharing with them in this new world, in this great spot after they've bought.
Brilliant. Okay, so that really closes down that part of the webinar here then, in terms of some of the mistakes that you can make, but what you can do to improve the quality of your calls. We've now got to the section of any other tips. Let's move with the first one, webcams on. I was delivering a coaching session the other day. I actually just asked the question, why didn't you turn your webcam on? And she shared with me that her and her team don't feel comfortable putting their webcams on. Rich, tell us why webcams and having them on is so important.
And listen, I understand that not everybody feels totally comfortable with the webcams on. I get that. But I feel like that is changing with this new world, virtual world that we're living in. But it is so much different being able to physically see someone when you have your webcam. They get to see you, you get to see them. And one of the biggest challenges with selling virtually right now is that prospects are distracted. You know, that they have, like, we're talking to them and it's so easy because they've got so much stuff going on. They're at their machine, their computer, their laptop. It's not like you're face to face with them. that, you know, they're looking at their phone off the screen, they've got notifications coming up, they've got emails, and it's very hard if you can't see them to figure out when your prospect is losing focus and attention. And so I think it's so key. If you put your webcam on, prospects are more likely to reciprocate, and they also just get to see you. You get to build that kind of physical connection with someone because they get to see you. I mean, think of it this way: if this webinar, if everybody watching this webinar could just hear our voices, I'm going to make a strong bet that you wouldn't be as engaged. And even with three guys as with our looks, you still would prefer to see us on camera versus not.
Don't ask for the opinion on that one. Okay, so webcams on are a must. We then move on to time management. This is key, right? Because this comes back down to why you show them what they care about first. The first thing you should do on a demo is check. I know we've got this booked in for 45 minutes, but I just want to check, how are you for time today? Don't ask about hard stops. See previous webinar for why, but just ask, how are you for time today? And then know in your head what you need to achieve. So roughly, you need to have the situation slide and go through it. You need to demo, and they might ask lots of questions. But then you also need to talk about next steps. So many demos end on the final minute, and it's just this mad scramble. I'm conscious of time management for ourselves, Rich. I don't think there's anything that needs to be added to that, would you say?
No, just be very wary of your time, be very wary of your prospects' time. And you know what? At the end, if you feel like you're rushed and you're not going to get that, if you don't feel you're going to do a good, if you're not going to do it justice, say if you got like 3 minutes left to talk about next steps, then don't rush it. Ask the prospect, hey, we've run out of time. Can we schedule 20 minutes tomorrow to finish off this part of the conversation rather than rush it? You'll be surprised at how many prospects are very willing to do that if you give them the reason. So don't be afraid to just make that suggestion if you do feel like you're tight for time.
But here's the thing: if they've not seen the dinosaur, they'll be less likely to do that. You 100%. Need to show them what they care about first.
100%.
Next one, mute notifications. It's such an obvious one. I still get caught out by this. Only yesterday, Slack was doing my head in. I had to just say to my prospect, I'm just going to turn this off, because it was just getting too much, and it's just such an easy thing to forget. But try and remember, turn off your WhatsApps, turn off your notifications, because they're just distractions. And there can be times, I've seen it myself, when I've been on a receiving end of a demo, a Facebook Messenger message has popped up, and you're like, you probably didn't want me to see that, but I have. So turn off notifications. Rich, why don't you set me up for this one, because I've got an example featuring you actually.
Yeah, so I think, and again, maybe more relevant if you're demoing software or a physical product here, is so often we feel like we're like in control, but actually you can transform your demo experiences by letting the prospect drive, putting them in control, even if it's simply just putting them in control of the slides or whatever you share with them. It just builds that interactivity and gets them, or even just asking them examples that they can give in their own real world. So I think the example that you're going to share here, Mark, is where we actually get the prospect to dictate what they would like to see as we're going through the demo. And this is an example that you're going to show.
Yeah, so just try and think when you're demoing your software, which I appreciate this part here is very specific for software, but try and think, how can you get them involved? How can you get them to take part? This is Rich getting someone to create a role-play challenge in Refract. And rather than Rich just going, let me show you how this works, does that make sense? He actually gets them involved. Let me just play this part of the demo for you.
Really show you how easy this is you to manage this and to bring this to life. Is let's create a challenge together, but make this specific to maybe something that you would run with your team at Canon. How does that sound?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so if you were to think of a challenge that you would want to set to your team, maybe a good example here could be a common objection that your guys typically will come across when they're out selling customers face to face. What would that objection be?
A common one that we
stop that now, because obviously he's about to reveal some of the things that he's struggling with. But what Rich has done is got him to think, well, we're going to make this for me. It's very personal. He's totally tuned in. And like, this is 20 minutes, this Rich, which I put in our best practice library, because he totally built this role play challenge himself. You were just a puppet. He was pulling the strings as to what he wanted and was so much more engaged as a result.
I got a question as well saying, what happens if the prospect digs so deep into a feature whilst letting the drive, you don't get to show what you wanted? I think the key there is, Matt, is that you don't need to necessarily give them physical control, but just ask them for real examples. Can you share an example of in your world where let them almost talk about their world and how you can whittle that into your product demonstration? And you can there's probably lots of examples of where you could get people to just think and specify example scenarios or situations or relevant things to do with their current role.
Okay, so let's move on to the FAQs. And just to reiterate, we're going to go through these pretty quickly. And then there is, honestly, I think the best offer we've ever given to anyone on our 10 webinars. So stick around for a special offer that I think you're all going to want to take advantage of. But let's get into the FAQs, right, Rich? We get people ask us all the time, how can we improve our demos? The first one we've got here is, what do I do? And we haven't got time for the clip, I don't think, Rich, but what do I do when I get an inbound demo request? Why is that so different?
I think when people get an inbound demo request, first of all, they get really excited. They're like, oh, someone must want my product. But they don't actually treat it as like, this is just one less cold call you've got to make, pretty much. I think oftentimes when people do an inbound request, the natural feeling is that you should just give them what they want. When actually, if we get someone who books a demo with Refract, I'll start the conversation by saying, hey, Mark, listen, I know that you've requested a demo and that you've probably came on here anticipating seeing something today. And I'm happy to share with you something quite high level if we've got time. But what I really want to do is make sure I've got a really good understanding if we can actually help you, first of all, and make sure I'm using the best use of your time. Is it okay if we treat the first part of this conversation with me just asking you some questions?
Yeah.
And like when I say it like that, I often get the prospect is very open to that because I'm telling them what's in it for them.
Mm-hmm. And a great question there, like to start off with, why are we talking today? What's the reason you've set aside half an hour and booked a demo with Refract? Why are we talking today? Yeah. The next one here, what if someone says, just give me a demo? Now, we covered this in our last webinar. We actually played like a 3.5 minute clip, which is definitely uncomfortable listening for some people, but Stu did absolutely the right thing. He found himself where someone was like, listen, I don't want any talk, just give me a demo. And Stu was like, well, I can't really just give you a demo. We're going to be here for hours. There's hundreds of things I could show you in Refract. I really want to help you. I want to show you the wow moment. Tell me a little bit about what you're looking to achieve. And I don't think this happens often, Rich, right? I don't think people are this sort of way inclined. But he was like, look, I can't really help you. Just give me a demo. Start from the top. And it got to the stage where Stu said, no, I'm not just going to give you a demo. I'm happy to give you one, but I need to know what you want to see. And me and you are like completely aligned that that's the right thing to do. Yeah. Would you add anything beyond what I've said there?
I don't think so. I think, listen, the key here is like, we are not, anybody on this bootcamp right now is not in the business of being what I call a demo monkey. You're not being paid just to demo your product mindlessly to people who just ask for a demo of your product. You're salespeople, you're professionals, you're doing this because you want to help people. And so just giving people what they want, which in their head is actually they don't know what they want, is not being helpful. Now, if you feel like you absolutely must have a solution in place when someone says, no, listen, I just want a demo. One tip I have heard before is you can create like a menu of like specific features or options, and you can say, okay, which of these options would you like me to focus in on today? And you get the prospect to almost specify which specific feature they would like you to focus in on. Again, I'm not a big fan of that because I just don't, you're just getting the prospect to choose what they think they need versus us actually learning and understanding and best. Some people who book a demo with Refract, they don't even know why they've booked the demo. They haven't really understood what we do. And then what do? I spend half an hour, give them a demo, and they think, actually, this wasn't for me. I'd much rather figure that out in 10 minutes and use my time and they can use their time more effectively elsewhere, if that's the case.
And Matt's put the link in the chat. Stu actually wrote about that whole experience, put it on LinkedIn. As Matt said, we all write regularly and post content from real life stories. So definitely check that article out. It got what I would consider to be viral. I know it's not, but it got a lot of likes and attention. We got the next one here. Like, how do I keep my prospects engaged in virtual meetings? I don't know about you, Rich. I feel like we've covered this. I can't imagine what else we could add to this. I don't know about you.
I think the one thing, I think you've shared this before with me, Mark, how you do it is sometimes you do realize prospects. I had it this morning. I was speaking with a prospect and I could tell they were distracted because their eyes changed direction in the cam. And you can tell, and it's easy to be distracted. We're all distracted. We've got so many notifications going on every day. And one of the things that you recommended that I really liked is saying, okay, this is a really important piece I'm going to share with you right now. Okay, this is a really, I think you're gonna be really interested in what I'm about to share with you. There was little kind of like setups that just gets the prospect to like give you their attention back, because you say, okay, you want to focus on what I'm about to share with you right now. It's just a polite way of just getting prospects to kind of give you their attention back. But it is hard. It's very difficult right now. I accept that.
But no, that's definitely the right move. I've had this before. Someone's like this, and you go, "What I'm about to show you, I think you're going to love." And they go,
"Yeah,"
because they grab their attention and they don't realise what you're doing.
There's one time, I'll just tell a story. I've done this one time and I've never done it again, which shows that I've got a little bit of need for approval, which we've talked about. Is I actually said to a prospect, "Sorry, have you got other things to worry about today? If so, I don't mind rescheduling." And I kind of addressed it front on with them.
Right.
And literally, I had more attention for the next 30 minutes. Like, they literally like focused on the screen because I kind of called them out a little bit. And maybe I should do more of that.
I was going to say, why wouldn't you do more of that?
It's just need for approval, but I should do more of that.
Fair enough. The last one, I always think is a really easy one, right? What do I do if my prospect won't turn their webcam on? I think it's really easy. I actually dug out a couple of examples of what I've done in these situations. Let me just play 2 clips for you here. So I think if you say it in the right way, you can get them to turn their webcams on. And it's just about that delivery. So I'll just dig out just 2 examples of where I've turned my webcam on. They've not turned theirs on. And I'll just play the examples for you.
It can feel awkward, can't it? Like, you're there with your webcam on, you see a black screen with like a white name along the screen.
Yeah. Once I've gone, all right, I'll turn mine off then. But like, so here
example of that.
So my name's Mark. Please, you could join us. I assume you can see and hear everyone. I don't know if you've got a webcam as well.
I have. Hold on.
There we go.
He was just putting his trousers back on.
And then we've got just this one here as well.
Great. Okay. Yeah. So I'm working from home today. So that's why it looks like this. Really, we don't have a meeting.
Back in the days when working from home was a novelty.
I was at the dining room table.
Hair was a novelty.
I'm really pleased we've got this time together. So apologies that you can see me. I can't see. I don't know if you guys have a webcam at all. We'll maybe see each other. That might be nice. But if not, no worries.
Let's have a look. Yeah.
Just feels a little bit more real, doesn't it? There he is.
There he is.
So there we go. It's easy to get people to turn their webcams on. You just got to ask nicely and make a bit of a joke out of it. Let's move on to the real special offer that I'm really looking forward to telling everyone about. I don't know if you were here last week and you heard me talk about My Sales Coach. Just put yes in the comments, and obviously you're gonna hear it again. But there is a special offer. So first of all, mysalescoach.com is a marketplace. Everyone here would have used Marketplace in the past. That is like, so my favorite marketplaces are Just Eat and Deliveroo, right? They connect me to my favorite local takeaways I didn't even know existed. I can see all the ratings and pick my favorite one, etc. One of the challenges that we have as sales professionals is that to get training, we either have to get our boss to provide it, and it's normally generic sheep dip approach training, or our boss has to train us, and that doesn't always happen, and it can be difficult. What we've done is we have created a coaching marketplace where you can go to right now. So keep this quiet, like genuinely keep it quiet. Don't post this anywhere. It has gone live today, but this is like the beta version. It goes live properly on the 13th of July. So please, until now, this is just secret and available to everyone on this webinar. You can go to mysalescoach.com, and what you can do is enter the marketplace. And the marketplace is where we have brought together a list of some of the very best sales coaches in the world. And what you can do is you can share with them. Those people said they record their discovery calls. Share with these your discovery calls. Share with them your recordings. And some people said they haven't got the facility to do that. On this website, you can make a recorded call and you can share it. We have got, as I say, some of the very best coaches available in the world. We've got a profile as well. Don't worry about that one.
Somehow.
Yes, somehow. But honestly, if you're an individual, you can share a call recording for as little as £20 and get it coached by a professional. Some are more expensive, but comes with reputation. If you're a manager and you don't have time to coach your team, you want your team to have more coaching, you can buy them credits as well. So what you're able to do is give your team credits. They can pick their own coach and get real coaching in on the back of their discovery calls and demos.
Interesting. I've done a survey recently that was basically surveyed the sales population, and so many salespeople are still saying they're not getting coached as much as they want to on a weekly basis. This is basically a place where you can just get coaching on demand without any long contracts, in some cases without it being ridiculously expensive, but allows you to access that expert coaching and help level up. Because when you get better, and we said it, people who keep on coming back to these boot camps, they do it for a reason, because they want to learn, they want to get better. This is a way to get that personalized coaching of like, okay, how can you actually really improve what you're doing as a sales professional? And this is just an easy access point for people who want that support.
And some of the people we got on here, right, like Peter Cohen, he literally wrote the book Great Demo, right? This guy knows his onions. We got Ginny Thompson here. She literally teaches people how to make cold calls. John Richardson, expert work of SDRs. We've got the UK's most hated sales trainer. We got Dave Curlin, who literally has forgotten more than we all know put together when it comes to sales. But here's the special offer. As I say, this is a secret website in terms of we are only giving access to everyone on this webinar for the next week, but it's going to get even better. You can right now, you can go to this website and you can buy credits and you can get a coach and you can take advantage of it. But our secret offer is if you go to this landing page, which in fact, I'll tell you what, I'll just show you here. If you register at Refract.ai/MSC, we're going to pick 5 lucky winners who we're going to give credits to so they can then in turn pick a coach and get free coaching. So if you go to this website right now and you register, we're going to pick 5 of you. And there's only like 100 so people on this webinar, so you've got a great chance of winning. And what you'll be able to do is just register here. You will then get access to mysalescoach.com, and 5 of you are going to get free credits, so where you can spend them with whoever you like, and you can get a cool coach.
Why wouldn't you enter that?
Why not?
Free coaching and make yourself better, which in turn helps you make more money, become more successful. I don't understand why you wouldn't do that, but there you go.
There we are. That really, I think, Rich, brings us to the end of the webinar. I think it's the first webinar we've ever finished on time.
Good time management.
Exactly. So yeah, that's what we want to talk to you today. I hope you found this session valuable. Hopefully you've taken some tips and tricks away. Before you leave, it'd be great to hear what you have taken away from this webinar. And as I say, let's all connect on LinkedIn. Matt will share our LinkedIn links again. There's more of you than it is us. Just connect with us, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one.
Yeah, this has been great. Really glad everyone's joined.
You guys want to take a question?
Yeah. Why not? Yeah.
Perfect. So George, right at the top of the webinar, said typed in a really good question. What would your recommendation be if you are an account manager that demos, but you demo with somebody from the tech side? And the demo is usually led by the tech person. What would you do in that situation?
Yeah, this is quite common. Like you got like pre-sales, or they're sometimes called solutions consultants. I think I think first of all, it depends on how involved you are in that demo, because in a lot of cases, the pre-sales guy almost takes over that demonstration. The principles are still the same that we've talked you through. They're often brought in because they have maybe more of the deeper technical knowledge in the product. But like, get that person to watch this webinar back, this bootcamp, and because it's the same principles, get them to make sure that it's a conversation, and get them to make sure that they're not over demoing, making sure that the discovery is still really effective. If your real role in that opportunity is doing the discovery, make sure that discovery is really great. Create the situation slide that you can use. Make that be your main contribution to that demo, and I guarantee your pre-sales representative will be massively appreciative of the legwork that you do in that too. Any more questions, Matt?
Cool. No, they're the ones that I had lined up already. If you guys have got any other questions, both Rich and Mark have got some extra time, so feel free to drop a question in the chat. But yeah, there is another one from Connor actually. So if you're given the opportunity to skip or circumvent the demo by a client, or a prospective client, I'm guessing, would you try and get them on it anyway? I.e., if it's going to close without a demo, should you just do it anyway? Do they increase customer success, etc.?
Well, that's a good question. I think the question is, if someone's ready to buy and they haven't seen a demo, do you still show them a demo anyway?
That's it, pretty much. Yeah.
Well, you did this the other day, didn't you, Rich?
Yeah. It has happened a couple of times. Listen, there is a risk that enthusiastic buyers sign up and buy, and they end up, they don't realize that the product can't do certain things later down the road. So I'd always I think you have to make a judgment call there, because I think if some people can buy without even having to see a product. They just understand the value. They get it.
What you've got to bear in mind as well, right? It's such information is available to everyone anywhere. You don't know if this person's got so much information on your website. They know someone that's a customer. They were a customer at a previous company but weren't directly involved. Like, so many different avenues in why they might just feel like, look, I need to know this. I need to just buy this. That's happened with me. I've done a few deals where I've not demoed. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, if I'm convinced they know what they're getting themselves in for, it's brilliant. No worries.
Here's the thing. Like, for me, I don't know if you agree with this, Mark. I almost know whether a deal is likely to come in after the discovery.
Yeah, 100%.
Like
I've said that to you before.
People think the demo is like where the deal is done. It's not. Like, I know if I've had the level of discovery I've had, I will say I think that deal's going to come in, because I'll know that the demo again is just a validation of what I know we can do to help. And that's the thing. I think if you can get to a stage where your discovery conversations, you come off them and think, that customer's going to buy, because I know that when I show them what we're going to show them in the demo, that it's just going to become a validation of how we're telling them we're going to help them.
100%. Like, I've said that to you before, haven't I? Off the back of discovery, we're going to do a deal here. Like, you just know. So yeah, hopefully that helps.
So we've got one more question, guys. If you've got 2 or 3 minutes, we've still got a good number of people on the call. Maria asked, really good question. It's sort of linked to what we've already covered, but I think it's a slight twist on it. Would you still combine a discovery and a demo for a shorter sales cycle? A lot of times we have difficulty getting our prospects back on the line if it's broken into 2 calls.
So my thoughts are there's 2 answers to this, right? My first question would be, thought would be, something's going wrong in the first call for them not to want to come back for a second one. That's my initial thought. What's going wrong in that first call? In terms of combining discovery and demo, shorter cycle, it depends what you're selling. If you're selling a toothbrush, you probably don't need to have that lengthy cycle. It does depend, but I would say vast majority of the time they should be separate conversations.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd agree with that. I think, again, the price point dependent and the amount of time that you want to seriously dedicate to it. I just feel like if you treat them as separate conversations, you're going to have a better close ratio. And no matter what you're selling at what price point, if you can have a better close ratio, and if you can make sure that the people that you're demoing to are actually qualified prospects because you've done effective discovery, then you should do it. It's worth the time investment. And again, like there's this thing, you can do a good discovery and your demo can be a 15-minute, 15-20-minute slot the next day. It's it's a good question. I'm not, and again, I think there are some caveats to it, but I'm just a big proponent of like, if you do a good discovery, that prospect will want to see the demo. It'll be easy, and if they're reluctant, it probably means that the discovery wasn't effective, or there isn't a good fit there.
Yeah, I would agree. We've still got a high number of people on here. Is there anyone still listening to us speak that hasn't taken advantage of this offer? Matt, what's the numbers looking like? Have we had a decent amount of people take advantage of this?
Let me just top these up.
Add some zeros.
Yeah, it's about 285. No, it's a decent number. There are a lot of people. I'm not going to share the real number, but it's a lot of people. Awesome. A lot of people keen to get involved. So yeah,
that's great.
Okay. Brilliant.
Right, well, I think that probably brings it to an end. I've really enjoyed this. I hope you have too.
Yeah.
Thanks for continuing to join us in this weird world that we live in right now.